to go to college without the requirements that they 2 to 4 had held against us to keep us out. So if you came from a neighborhood school that was an underproducing school, how were you going to qualify to go on to higher education? That was a catch-22. So they came up with a program called 3%. And at Portland State, it was called Project Teach. I was fortunate enough, after spending fall semester at Willamette University in 1967, as one of 3 black students on the campus in Salem, Oregon, in developing a conscience about blackness, and asked not to ever come back to Willamette University. After 1 semester, I arrived at Portland Community College, which was located in Shattuck Hall, which was at the northern end of Portland State's campus, 1968, winter. That was before the big campus at Sylvania was developed when they moved down. So I arrived at Portland State being ran out of Salem, because I had the nerve to call myself a black man and start asking some questions about the relevancy of our state capital and how it treated black people. Now, as a footnote, a family footnote, one of my aunts, my personal aunt, Aunt Hattie, had moved to Salem in 1939, so I knew Salem before I got there. And my next older brother, Richard Payne, had graduated from Willamette University in 1966. But his conscience level had not risen to the point that mine had in 1967. And therefore, it was a parting on equal terms. I didn't want to go to jail, and they wanted to arrest me. So I came back to Portland in 1968. At PCC, we formed, because our brothers and sisters at Portland State had priorly formed the Black Student Union at Portland State, we formed the Black Student Union at PCC Shattuck Hall. That fall, because of the 3% program, I was allowed to cross the street to Portland State and pick up the battle that was going on at Portland State in 1968. Some of my fellow students at Benson Polytechnic High School had preceded me. Alfred Dawson was one of them who had led the charge and was the BSU president when they founded the BSU in 1968. And so we moved rapidly forward on addressing the issues of our history and our place in America from Little Portland, Oregon in 1968. I have to take off my glasses to read. Black students came together and formed their own student organization, the Black Student Union, and immediately stopped all plans by the school for involvement and development of outreach services to the black community, until these plans were reviewed by the Black Black Student Union at Portland State. What we found out is that some very far-reaching and intellectually minded people at Portland State were planning their future, and they wanted to be inclusive of the minority community of Portland at that time. And they had started developing plans to provide services to us. But the problem is that there was nobody looking like us who was involved in that planning process. So the first thing that the Black Student Union did was demand that all action cease and all plans be handed over to us for review. And secondly, that any committee that was ever to be formed on the campus of Portland State involving the black community had to have representation of black people that was on the campus. Now, this had never been done before. And not everybody was welcome to that perspective of having to have black people review something for themselves before someone else did something to them. But they demanded, that's the black students, representation on all school committees scheduled to focus on the needs of the black community, and also not only to have the opportunity to be at the table, we were bold back then, but that we would also have veto powers over anything the university decided to do. The PSU's position was that white people, Portland State University, had no right to determine the needs and service levels for black people. The PSU, as the black community representatives on the campus, would determine the scope and range of needed services, period. Putting them in their place. That's what we was doing. Now, we were very fortunate at this time, 1968, because there was a lot of things going on that the larger community had to deal with. We were kind of Johnny-come-lately to the demand front here in Portland as black people. No one had really demanded anything per se prior to. Now, the black community has always petitioned for redress, and had always organized to take and make its position known. But prior to the Black Student Union at Portland State, no one had demanded anything. So this was a whole new concept that was developing within inside of the community, and it wasn't really embraced by the elders in our community. I got to be truthful about that. But we were blessed by having history on our side. Portland State was getting ready to welcome a new president. The country was growing discontented with the Vietnam War, and the civil rights movement was being challenged at this time by another movement called the Black Power movement. Black students on campus throughout the United States were organizing and moving forward with new strategies to gain inclusion, respect, and above all, power to the people. These were things that hadn't been spoken in the black community previously. We happened to be at the right time in the right place to address the aspirations of black people for equal rights and their full share of the American pie. Given this historical point in time and its opportunities to bring about real and relevant changes, black students moved aggressively to claim their rightful places at the table and to direct resources to satisfy their needs. Black folks hadn't demanded too many things in Portland up until this time. We had suggested things, but we had always been willing to compromise to the better willings of the white community as to what they were willing to allow us to have. But at this juncture of time, when we had thousands of white folks down in the park blocks fighting the police every day about the Vietnam War, Portland State did not want to take and do battle with black students who were on campus in record numbers at this time. And we took full advantage of this unique opportunity. We formed the Black Student Union. Now, an interesting parallel you have to know. Portland State had just got through electing their first black student body president at the time. a brother by the name of Andrew Haynes, a graduate student from North Carolina, who none of us knew. And as we formed the Black Student Union and started to collectively organize ourselves around issues that we wanted to represent, the white student body ran to Andrew Haynes and asked his opinion about what we were doing. Would it surprise you that Andrew Haynes was our #1 nemesis during this time of period? Because as student body president, he profoundly declaimed there was no need for a black student union on campus because he was black and he was the student body president who no black knew. We not only told the white students that they couldn't come to our black student union meeting, but we told Andy he couldn't come either. Which caused a couple of little problems for the white students in the white university, but we didn't care. See, we knew that we was in the power position. And we knew that at this one unique time in history, our demands carried more weight than ever before. So we started to look at what was our needs. That's called a need analysis. And we decided to move on several fronts at the same time because we didn't know how long we had this opportunity. So we decided to address the question of why did white people kill Martin Luther King? Because when they killed him, they ran to us and said, well, what can we do? We said, you can give us some money. What will you use the money for? Oh, well, we don't believe the 3% program is going to be here too much longer. So we think we need to start a Martin Luther King Jr. Scholarship Fund to continue the opportunity for black students to go to college. They said, oh, we like that idea. We said, well, we also think that Portland State, since you were thinking about doing something for black people before we demanded that you stop, we think that you need to provide college-level courses in the black community. They said, we hadn't thought about that. We said also, incidentally, white students are starting to get upset about this slush fund called the Incidental Student Fund, and why only 1/3 of the Incidental Student Fund goes to students. And none of that goes to black students. So we joined the white students to demand a greater share of the Incidental Student Fund at Portland State, and we created the Black Cultural Affairs Board so that we could get our own money to do our own thing, to represent our own self in our own way at Portland State. Next, we thought about it that there wasn't too many black adults on the campus. How could we address the lack of black role models and mentors for black students on the campus? And then most of us had came from Portland Public School, and we had never learned anything about black people in school. So we said, now, maybe we can get 2 for 1 for this one. Why don't we create a Black Studies program that's going to bring relevancy to our lives and tell us about, we used to run the world, and recruit some black teachers that would take and help us feel good about ourselves as we learn about ourselves. So Portland State said, now that's a novel idea. but we need to study that one. So the new president, Dr. Gregory Wolf, excuse me, a State Department specialist that was brought to campus to deal with the white folks tearing up the campus behind the Vietnam War, he was a negotiator. He said, well, why don't we form a council to review this subject matter? And we said, well, we can do that, but you know we got to have 50% of representation on anything that you do involving the black community. He said, that sounds reasonable. And we said, you know we got to have co-chairs. He said, we can do that. So we formed the Black Studies Council to study the ideal of creating a Black Studies program at Portland State. What actually happened between 1968 and 1969 and 1970, in an 18-month period, we were able to form a scholarship program. We were able to form Black Cultural Affairs Board. We was able to start the Black Studies movement. And we was able to take and introduce the idea of bringing college classes into the black community. We didn't have no little phones to talk to you back then either. Found that very interesting. Now, I have to mention just briefly that parallel to Portland State, this same phenomenon was happening throughout the United States and the state of Oregon. My dear sister Joyce Harris, Ronnie Hearn, and others had come to read, and they were dealing with the same problems over there. My cousin Michael Smith, who was living in Corvallis and graduated from Corvallis High School, who was at Oregon State University, they was dealing with some problems down there. Most of the blacks from Portland had escaped from the urban ghetto and had went down to the University of Oregon party town, and they was having some issues down there too. And you might be surprised, but there was black students on about 16 or 17 different universities throughout the state of Oregon that all of a sudden developed this same concept of righteousness and started asking questions on their campus. So by 1970, we had black student unions on 17 different campuses throughout the state of Oregon, and Portland State University served as the nucleus for all of them. So when Sister Joyce and Ronnie decided to take over the administration building, when the black students decided to walk off the campus at Oregon State University, and when the black students at Pacific and Linfield decided that they were going to take and make some demands, they had called Portland State and asked us could we help them in doing that. In fact, I can just tell you that the day before the black students walked off the campus at Oregon State University, I took a Greyhound bus trip to Corvallis. Spent all night with the Black Student Union figuring out how they was going to do it. And my uncle wisely told me the next morning to catch the Greyhound bus out of town, for they couldn't say it was an out-of-town agitator who had started this mess at Oregon State. It wasn't an out-of-town agitator. Folks were just tired, and they wanted some change, and the only way that they could get the attention of the administration was black students walking off their campus. So this is the historical context of which the Black Studies program at Portland State was germinated. It was a time that the Northwest finally realized that our brothers and sisters that we've seen on TV being bitten by dogs and being water hosed down and being bombed and being hung and being brutalized was not something that was distant. It was something that was personal. And we weren't going to allow that mentality that was operating anywhere else in the United States to come here to Portland, Oregon. We were tired, we were fed up, and we weren't going to take it anymore. And so that's the background and the history context of which we had the audacity to refer to our story, the story of black people at Portland State that led to the opportunity of black studies being invented and being created. Thank you.
All right, so to get people energized a little bit, I think we need some food, and food is ready. So, Ruth, are we ready to go? All right, so I believe there's food here, and there's gonna be food at this window right here. And I think we're gonna, what's that?
The meat is at that.
The meat is at the window, and
Then all the side dishes over here.
the side dishes over there. So I think it'll be safer to start over there and then end up over here. If we all start in a line. And so, again, we're gonna come back to this once we all settle and get our food and all that good stuff. So, again, thank you for being patient with us. Appreciate it.
Food break. That was good. I'll try the red one. You think so?
Yeah.
Spoken word. And so, team, let's do it.
Have you ever seen
How was
him
everyone this evening?
perform before?
I'm very
It's good.
fine. I was asked by my good friend Ruth to do a piece, and I thought about it, and it was to commemorate, I guess, the 40th anniversary of the Black Student Union. And I had met this morning with Ben Priestley, which was really interesting. He was telling me about how he had his involvement in the United Front. It was very inspirational, and I love to listen to my elders. I love it, because you get things that you don't get from your regular friends. And so I went home. I'm gonna do my best to hold this microphone and read this. I tried to memorize it, but I don't want to make any mistakes, so you hear everything I said. I recently did this performance at Reflections, and one of my elders said, well, you should slow down and put emphasis on the things that you really mean and put some oomph into it. So we're gonna see how this works.
All right. Take your time.
All right, here we go. Jay, you wanna hold this book for me? This is my kid brother. And I'm just tapping this on the page. There we go. I'm overwhelmed when I think about all that you've had to endure just to get what you deserved. I'm even more overwhelmed to understand that. And because I think we take understanding for granted in these generations, I took a little more effort just to listen. And so I pressed my head against your heart so I could hear your memories. And I listened to every word you say, because there's so much we didn't catch the first time. So much we should care about, but don't know how. And so much we think we know, yet don't know, in such a familiar place, where the education of your lives is treated with silent mention. I'm overwhelmed because your lives are our history, and your experiences should be our education. And it troubles me to know that there are those who would rather wish to prevent that in such a familiar place. This is such a familiar place that only wishes to recognize our experiences nominally, forgive me, that confines our volumes to library basements, save those token pieces that won't truly expose the dimensions of this place. And even if they did, this familiar place commemorates our martyrs who died and gave their lives for such an invisible progress. I found it interesting also that they labeled these places institutions of higher education, but didn't really have you in mind. Where they teach art and math and sciences and literature, and none of your children are honorably mentioned in either of these places. And so I'm overwhelmed when I think about all that you've had to endure just to get what you deserved from such a familiar place. And I listen to your memories when I press my ear against your hearts, because we're forgetting. And we're beginning to lose ourselves. And we're beginning to believe in a reflection that doesn't look like us at all. And so we need you. Because you speak for us the things we don't know to say in such a familiar place. Thank you.
Thank you, Timmy. I like to call him Timmy, sorry. Timmy Moth, everyone. So we're going to continue with our discussion here. And so we'll go right here. Mr. White, we're going to continue our discussion. Thank you.
I am not a minister like my predecessor. He tries to get you excited. And so we're going to try to soothe you down and make you comfortable. I was there, it took me about 9 years to get my bachelor's, so you can tell about how intelligent I was. But during that process, you meet a lot of people. And if I was going to have a theme, I'm not going to be as long as he is either, about 3.5 minutes. But if I was going to have a theme, I would say, keep your administration off balance at all times. Think, think, think. Have the good guys, have the not so good guys that bug them. And they'd rather deal with you rather than some of these other folks. Okay? So, but it's all in a plan. All of these things, what Dennis said, happened. The 3% program, something that came out of that also was a community affairs board that had 4 or 5 different boards inside of it, and all of them, when we got a hold of them, all of them became black. It was a Black Cultural Affairs board. We brought people here like Alex Haley and Stokely Carmichael and all those kinds of people. They thought we were just going to bring the moderates here. We brought everybody here. The PSU Center, they thought that, we were just going to have it for a little while, but it lasted about 5 or 6 years. Okay? The Black Student Union, they thought we were going to be nice black young men. That didn't work out either because we were rebels. Now, what I'd really like to talk about is something that I had a deep involvement in, although I had a deep involvement in everything. I think that's why it took me so long to graduate. But it was the Martin Luther King Scholarship. And the Martin Luther King Scholarship was a result of us going to Dr. Gregory Wolfe and saying there's not enough people that look like us in this university. And he said, oh, fine, maybe you can find some. We haven't been able to find a whole lot. Well, about the next 2 or 3 days, we had 19 people that were ready to, and qualified, not under the 3% program, but qualified to come to the regular university. And when we plopped that down on the table, I think it was Isaac Shamsuddin, plopped that down on the table, they said, we don't have any money. And guess what we said? That's not our problem. You said you didn't have the qualified people. Here are the qualified people. They're ready to go to school. We're ready to register them, so they're going to start classes. They said, "You can't do that." And we said, "Watch us."
All right.
And they scrambled, and they scrambled, and they scrambled for the next 2 or 3 weeks, got all of those students in because they were already attending classes. Okay? So, if I had anything to say, keep them off balance. I know that the fight is not over with the Black Studies. That was about the only thing that survived. So you need to put your heart and soul into it and make sure it works. And I'll introduce Mr. O.B. Hill.
One thing I can say about Mr. White, he is an activist and not necessarily an entertainer. I'm an entertainer.
Come on.
The last time I was on this stage, I was on my knees. It was with a group called Cobras. James Mason, 2O Howard, and O.B. Hill. There was a band behind us, and people were rocking and rolling out there. My goodness gracious. This was the Elks Club.
Yeah.
This is the Elks Club. Now, next year, when the Friends of Black Studies have this event, this won't be large enough. Now I can sit down. That was my encore. In order to really get involved with what we're here for tonight, I was asked to get involved and do some research. Right now I'm a community historian. And that's different from most historians because a community historian is a historian who actually grew up in the community in which we're talking about. When I first thought about this presentation, I thought about Memorial Day 1948. And at that time there was called the Vanport Extension Center. It's now called Portland State University.
That's right.
My brother Clarence and I, we really wanted to go to the movie that day. We was almost insistent. Mama had the ham bacon. I can still see the pineapples on it. But we had heard that there might be some possibilities that the water was a little bit high. So she made us stay at home. So we were playing outside. And a policeman came along on a motorcycle and said that the dike had broke. So we ran inside, and we were up on one of those second floor, and told Mom, and then she commenced to getting everybody together. Daddy was in the bed, still hungover. He's a big drinker. And he'd been out partying that Saturday night before that Sunday. And we all got together, and Mama grabbed the four of us, and we left. Daddy was still in bed. And a bus came along, and when the driver opened the door, water came out. And we got on and were driven up to Kenton, a little district in North Portland. So I have a long history with Portland, what now is Portland State University, because I am a child of the blood. Now looking back over all of these years, 40 years. 40 years of anything should be commended. And so I would say that all the people affiliated with Portland State University should stand up and give yourself an applause. Primary St. John, and Daryl Milner and all the others. You know, the work I did along with Dennis Payne to make this presentation, we went down and looked at the vanguard. We went to vanguards between 1968 and 1970, just to verify what we thought we knew. And we found out that we knew that and more. Because in these newspapers, it really didn't give an accurate account of what was going on. And as Mr. White says, keep them off balance. We began to realize that we had inherited some of the same traits and characteristics of those people who used to say, wade in the water. Or I'm going up yonder. You know, if anybody asks you where I'm going, where I'm going soon. Come on, come on, come on. If anybody tells you where I'm going, where I'm going soon, I'm going up yonder. I'm going up yonder. I'm going up yonder to be with my Lord. Now I know that some people didn't believe I said I was on my knees the last time I was up. So for all those doubting Thomases, I just had to do that. 1968 was a very interesting year. The Albina Presence program, I remember when Isaac Allen at the time, then Isaac Nomo, now Isaac Shamsuddin, they had a program called Black Summer. It was a house right down off of by Mississippi. And I had quit my job with Empire Uniforms that I'd worked for 6 years with the Menashe brothers. And I was sort of wandering around. I knew that I had to do something. And I decided that I heard about the 3% program and went to Portland State. And when I went down there, they told me, well, you don't need a 3% program. Your grades are good enough to go to school anyway. So that's for the Martin Luther King Scholarship Fund and other college work study, etc. came in. And then Cottrell White, doing the college work study, says, we have a position for you with the Community Action Program and educational activities. And he's correct, because we had taken over the whole wing up there. So it wasn't just the BSU. The BSU was the point of the spear. and then you had the shaft, and we were all parts of the feathers. And so, while Andrew Haynes was running for president and winning and fighting the BSU, including asking that the BSU give up their space so that his administration can have a place, we were steadily working in the field. And you know what? We still have been working. There's only one thing we didn't do. We forgot to reach back and continue the links in the chain. This has taken 40 years. But believe me, we're back now, and that's what we're going to do. I'm going to close this by saying, because people ask me about Black Cultural Affairs. Now, Black Cultural Affairs was under Jimmy Jackson, the Black Cultural Activities Committee. It was not a board. You see, committees come and go, but boards stand on their own. First was Black Week, and then we changed it to Black Cultural Week. And then a gentleman by the name of Harold Cruz came, and he had a lecture, and he says it shouldn't be Black Week, it should be Black Year. And so we compromised. So the following year under Charles Cruz, we had what we call Black Month. After that, Andrew Houston took over. And Andrew was a former, well, he was a Black Panther. But he didn't have the skills to run the board, so the compromise was you shut down the community action program, which I was over, and then we'll allow they were trying to eliminate us. So we said, okay, we can do that, but the Black Cultural Activities Committee should become a board. And so those people who are still here in Black Cultural Affairs, could you please stand up? The Black Cultural Affairs. You know, verification of history is very important. Yes. But one way to do it was go down and look in the newspaper and do some research to all these volumes of Vanguard to find out what articles were really written that depicted us in there. And we went and got every article that we saw in those two volumes in 68 and 69 all the way up to 70, including ads. In those ads, the two most people who showed up the most was a car salesman in ads. He's a Chevrolet salesman. And they got bailed out too. And Andrew Haynes. Believe me, this is important. Larry Penn, our man, selling cars. And of course, Andrew Haynes, the president of the student body at Portland State, who incidentally was a one-term president. There was a recall petition for him, and he ended up leaving. But we were still there.
That's all right.
Verification. The Black Cultural Affairs Board membership, 1970 to 1994. Naola Adair, Michelle Abbott, Clarence Berry, who incidentally was the first person to get a certificate from the Black Studies Department. And I saw him the other night at the Jesse Jackson place, and I asked him, but he didn't come here. Lois Berry, his wife. Roseanne Butler. Barbara Cartwright. Charles Cruz. LaFerris Gay. Clarence Hill, O.B. Hill, Patricia Hill, Andrew Houston, Jimmy Jackson, Joe McHenry, Marvin McKinley, Evelyn O'Neill, Lynn Reed, Dave Robinson, Yolanda Russell, Ron Steen, Melvin Walker, Abel Waters, Cottrell White Jr., and Cheryl Wilson. This is real. And I've kept this for 36 years. To have the honor of showing this tonight. And I thank you very, very much, Black Studies.
Amen. In closing, I've always been interested in the vocabulary of the larger society. And they claim that any time that you use someone else's words, you're supposed to take and give them reference. Is that called a footnote? But then, one of the things that I became very profoundly aware of was that these same people that tried to tell me what I was supposed to do never gave my ancestors any footnotes or credit. You know, if you know anything, you're supposed to tell the truth. Black Studies was supposed to be about telling the truth. Since we didn't know anything about ourselves, because they refused to tell us, we demanded that the truth be told. So I said that to say that I ran across a little article that I stole and made mine, because I know it came from us. And it was a little thing that I have reworded as says, Black Power versus the Civil Rights Movement. All right now, y'all. Don't get too comfortable now. The article went on to say that the Black Power movement of the 1960s had far greater influence on the struggle for equal rights than is most commonly given in accounts of black history. Somebody need to say amen to that. Come on. See, because Black Power remains the most misunderstood social movement of the post-war era. They went on to say. Come on. There's a brother with a book out. Get a hold to the, as I refer to them as our local Negro papers. But there's a book review that I stole this from. Come on. I borrowed, excuse me. You can't steal something that's already yours. It was demoralized as the civil rights twin back in the day. It was stereotyped as the political rage practiced by people like the Black Panther Party. And they went on to characterize this movement of Black Power as a militant movement. Because the civil rights movement was a nonviolent movement. See, some people believe that if you just allow them to whip you all day and all night, that they would get tired of whipping you and then they put it down and you could rest a little while. But the Black Power movement said, if you dare think about whooping me,
Yes.
I will do something to you that your mama won't recognize. See, brothers like Stokely and H. Rap, they didn't play that turn the other cheek mentality. Malcolm said, by any means necessary, I'm going to get you up off of me and make sure that the funeral tomorrow is going to be yours and not mine. This was a disconcerting voice in America at that time. Because in prior years they told me in their history books that they used to hang Negroes that talk that way.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, if you couldn't even look at a Caucasian woman and smile without being hanged, what do you think they were going to do to you if you was talking about, if you look at my wife, I'll kill you? See, it was a one-way street back in the day. It was their way. But somebody decided that that wasn't going to be no more.
Come on.
That if you had the audacity to look at my woman with those probing eyes,
Well done.
I might have to perform some surgery on you to make sure you never looked at a sister again. And then someone thought that that was wrong for a black man to feel that way about his woman. See, you got to keep it real. They could do anything they wanted to your mama, to your sister, to your auntie. And you couldn't say anything about it for fear of your life. But someone must have had a nightmare one night and thought that they was equal to someone else and said, I'm not going to take it anymore. Now I'm trying to tell you what Black Studies is about. It ain't about toting that bag and saying, yes sir, master. It's about people who develop the basis of this world to transform itself from nothing to something.
Come on.
Ancient people, black people, discovered things that we still don't know today. Because when people of a different heritage came along and found out how great and how magnificent you were,
Come on.
they decided to shave off the nose and the lips of the pyramids in Africa. Because how could someone be so great to do those things and we were going to label them as savages and unworthy of our blessing? Black Studies was supposed to correct those misinterpretations of the world and set it straight. The more militant movement, I gotta go back to my notes, for social justice and self-determination was, in some ways, more robust, more boastful, more soulful than any movement that had ever come before. It makes the three of us up here feel so proud and so mindful of our past to step back on the campus at Portland State and see these young black folks today picking up that mantle. You know, we came from the generation that just wanted us to be able to have opportunity and to participate in the American dream. And over the last 40 years, the American dream has come full cycle, and if you want to believe in something that is nothing but an illusion,
Yes.
then you keep on having nightmares. But young folks, remember this. 3 of us was just like you 40 years ago. But we decided that we were going to take the audacity to challenge the status quo and to determine for ourselves our own destinies and to change the course of history at Portland State.
Come on.
You do the same thing today. And in 40 years, we'll be having you up here speaking to a crowd from your community saying how blessed you feel about what they're doing today because you led the way today. We thank you, we love you, and we are here as long as God allows us to support you. Amen.
So we're going to go into our next section, and this section is the state of Black Studies at Portland State, and to present that, here's Dr. Milner.
I'm just going to stand down here. Can you hear me? Now?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to stand down here and talk for a few minutes. I've already made one mistake tonight. I want to start out, first of all, by thanking the gentleman that started the Black Studies program at Portland State. I feel honored to be a part of the legacy that they are responsible for, and I feel privileged to be here on the program with them tonight. But I did make a mistake when I asked to be a part of this program and to talk a little bit about Black Studies as it exists today and the kind of issues and problems that we face. I didn't make a point of asking them to put me on before we ate dinner. Because when you give me ribs and fried chicken, I eat it with my hand. And so if I miss a few names and miss a few events as I make my presentation, please forgive me. Those are the ones under the barbecue sauce and I would like to be able to tell you that the kind of problems that they described in getting the program started are no longer problems for the program. That now we are well accepted and well supported and well integrated into the community at Portland State. But if I told you that, all of you would know that I was not telling the truth. The same kind of problems that they faced in 1968, we still face today. And I want to give you just one example of that. The department staff spent all of a day last summer tuning up our mission statement, talking about the things we wanted to accomplish in the next 5 or 10 years. We sent that document to the office that supervises us, the dean's office, and this is a part of the response that we got from their review of our plans. Said about the department, there is little funded research going on in Black Studies, and in fact, little research of any sort. If you're a department at a university, one of the things you're supposed to do is conduct research. Their response went on to say the department also needs to be more visible in the community and in the university. And then the people who prepared these comments told us that we were a bad department. They told us that in writing. They told us that to our faces in a Black Studies meeting. We don't think we're a bad department. We think we have a vision of what a department at a university is supposed to do that's a little different than their vision. Okay? These are some of the reasons why I don't think we're a bad department. I want to introduce you to some of the people in the department and some of the things that we're doing and have done. Our chairman is named Kofi Agorsa. Kofi engages in what I call resistance archaeology. That is, he studies the people of our race who resisted slavery and colonialism and fought back against those kind of injustices and institutions. If you go to Jamaica or Ghana or Guyana in South America and you're with Kofi, Kofi is a celebrity. Everybody knows Kofi. Kofi knows everybody else. That's the kind of research that's important to us as a Black Studies department. It's not the kind that's important to the university. Okay? And that's why we fight some of the same battles that we fought in 1968 and 69. One of the things that we think is important for the department to do is to connect the university to our community. Okay? How do we do that? One of the things we do is conduct a Black Bag lecture series. The man who organizes that is Ethan Johnson, one of our faculty members. We bring people from the community to the university where they share their information and their experiences. Ethan doesn't get any extra money from the university to coordinate that lecture series. All the energy and all the time that gets required to do that, Ethan contributes to the department and the university and to the committee. We think that's important. When the Urban League wanted to study and research and present information about the Black experience to the state of Oregon, to the politicians in Oregon, they came to the Black Studies Department. Much of the research, the statistics, the interpretations of the Oregon Black experience that you see in the state of Black Oregon from the Urban League, that came from the work of the Black Studies Department. We think that's important research. The university does. We think our department should be engaged in community activism, in doing things that help the community. These are the kind of things that we do. Most of you might know that the original Black community was centered around the railroad station, around Union Station, on the other side of the river in what we know as the Pearl District, that's Old Town today. One of the most important institutions in that original Black community was called the Golden West Hotel. That was a neglected and a lost piece of Black history in the city. But if you go down there today, you will see the history on the building that still exists on Gleason and Broadway, in panels and in oral presentations that are available to people who visit that building. One of the descendants of the people who own the Golden West Hotel is a current Black Studies student. Her name is Nicole Allen. We were able to generate the kind of research that made that display and that contemporary information possible for the citizens of today. Nicole was very instrumental in that. We were able to connect to that original family history, and the city benefits from that today. We think that's important for a Black Studies department to do. We think that's the kind of things that we're responsible for. In the year 1857, Oregon adopted a statehood constitution. That original constitution defined every right and ability and responsibility in the state and preserved those rights for the white population. If you look at the original Oregon Constitution, everything is described in the context of what whites can do. Well, that language changed in the year 2002. That language changed because of one of our faculty members. Abel Gordley at the time served in the Oregon legislature, the kind of research and documentation that helped Abel get a bill passed to a vote of the citizens to remove that kind of language is the kind of thing that Black Studies departments should be doing. So when you pick up the Constitution of this state today, it doesn't say white this and white that. That language is gone. It wouldn't be gone without the work of people from the Black Studies department at Portland State. The university doesn't think that that's good, useful research, but we do. In the state of, or in the status of higher education, today one of the most important ingredients is athletics. Football teams, basketball teams, collegiate athletics. You don't find many coaches of color, although you find many athletes of color involved in those kind of higher education athletic activities. One of our students, a graduate, a major in black studies, just last year, because of things he learned in the department, in the tutelage of ABEL and other members in the faculty, was able to get passed through the Oregon legislature a law that said any time a coach is hired in any sport in Oregon, higher education, they have to interview a minority candidate before they can hire anybody. Okay? Sam Sachs. We are the only state in the union that has a law like that. Okay? That's significant. That's national community service. And Sam Sachs is one of our former students that we're very proud of. Now, a Black Studies department not only has responsibilities to a black community, we feel we have a responsibility to the whole community. And if you live in Portland today, you live in a city that has a mayor who is integrity challenged. Okay? We don't think that's good for a city, and it is a member of the Black Studies department that's trying to do something about that, not just for the black community, but for the whole community. We think that things like integrity and principles are important in the leadership of a city. Maybe the university doesn't think as strongly about that as we do. If you look around the Black Studies faculty, you find people like Pedro Ferbel. Pedro teaches what we call at the university capstones. Before you graduate from Portland State, they require you to take a class in which you are immersed in the community. There weren't many opportunities for the kind of immersion that were important to black students until Pedro got involved in that particular activity. And now black students can find ways to meet that requirement that allow them to work in the black community and be of service to the black community. We think that's important. We think that the university has to include that if they're going to serve black students the way they serve other students. Now, I'm coming to the barbecue juice and the fried chicken, but I didn't want to forget Taria Autry and Walida Emerisha.
Woo!
They are effective, wonderful classroom teachers for us at Portland State, but that's not all they do for the black community. If you haven't caught them in their good sister, bad sister act, you have not seen an important part of black culture in Portland and in the Pacific Northwest. They talk about and present black culture in a way that we can understand and respond to. Now, I haven't figured out which one is the good sister and which one is the bad sister yet, but I know you need to see them in action. The Black Studies Department gives them an opportunity to practice that and also to teach the students at Portland State that will benefit from their knowledge and their teaching skills. Now, I want to give you one last example of the kind of role we see for Black Studies that makes us comfortable with what we do, but makes a university feel that we're not a good department. Okay? At the university, one of the things that is their highest standard of evaluation of a department is what they call grant-funded research. Okay? Grant-funded research. Why they like it so much is for every grant dollar that comes to the university, they get 30 cents. They want their faculty members to write grants to university agencies, to private foundations. They want their faculty to generate money because they get 30% of it that they can use as a slush fund for the things that they like to do. That's why you see the language that says you're not doing grant-funded research. Now, we have a different concept of research in the black community. We have to do some of that or else we can't function in the context of higher education. But that's not the reason we do research. We do research in the context of community service research. And I'll just give you one example from fairly recently in Portland history and Portland State history to kind of demonstrate the difference. In the year 2006, if you were here in the Portland area, you noticed a celebration of what was called the Lewis and Clark commemoration. Lewis and Clark came to Oregon about 200 years ago, and that's a big deal in American history. They talked about many aspects of that in that bicentennial celebration. Well, the Lewis and Clark experience is connected to the black experience as well. One of the people who came to Oregon 200 years ago with Lewis and Clark was a black slave of William Clark named York. That story needed to be told. There are a number of ways you can tell that story. You can write a grant to the National Park Service for $500,000 and give the university 30% of that for their slush fund, or because Lewis and Clark recorded their story in 12 volumes of journals that we have in the Portland State Library, you can go sit in the Portland State Library for a few hours a week for a few months in a row and read every reference to York in those 12 journals of Lewis and Clark. You can drive out to Lewis and Clark College that has the best collection of scholarship on Lewis and Clark compiled over the last 200 years, and you can read every reference to York in all of that 200 years of scholarship. And then you can write about that, and then you can produce radio programs about that, and then you can produce a documentary about that, and you don't need $500,000 from the government. Okay? We did that in the last 2 years. In the years of the bicentennial, York's story became known not just here in Portland, but all over the nation and all over the world. And unfortunately for our reputation at Portland State, they didn't get their 30%. That's why they think we're a bad department. But we think we're a good department because now the world knows about York. That's the kind of thing that we try to do at Portland State, and that's the kind of thing that we will always do in honor of these gentlemen and in the context of what we feel we owe to the black community. Now, that's what we do. The kind of issues that we still have. We were given the opportunity to start a hire for a new faculty member at the beginning of this year. We produced that, recruitment, and we selected 3 faculty members from other parts of the country that we wanted to bring to visit to Portland State to see if they would fit into our department and would be consistent with the kind of things that we're trying to do there. Last week, the dean told us that none of our candidates were acceptable, that we had to stop the search, that we wouldn't be allowed to hire one of those people who we consider to be finalists. Let me tell you who those people were. One was the top graduate from Yale University's African American Studies program, who will graduate this May with a PhD in African American history. As far as the dean was concerned, that person is not qualified to be an assistant professor in black studies at Portland State. One of the other finalists was a PhD graduate from Columbia University. That person came to our recruitment process with the highest recommendation from a man named Eric Foner, who is a professor of history at Columbia University. Eric Foner is considered by many people in the world today to be the leading historian of U.S. history. The #1 historian in the world recommended this graduate of Columbia University's history department to us. Our dean did not consider that person to be acceptable as an assistant professor at Portland State. One of our graduates from the 1990s, one of the top graduates of our Black Studies Department and the Political Science Department at Portland State University, graduated from Portland State and went on to the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. The University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill is considered to be a Tier 1 research institution. It's considered to be the Ivy League institution of the South. They got a PhD there, and now they're engaged in significant research efforts as a postdoctoral student at the University of North Carolina. The dean does not consider that person to be acceptable as an assistant professor in black studies at Portland State. That's the impasse that we have now. We're trying to negotiate We're trying to allow those people to come to campus, not so that we can hire them, just so that we can interact with them and see if any will be appropriate. That's the kind of issue that we still deal with today in Black Studies at Portland State. The other thing that's happening in Black Studies at Portland State at this very moment, the school is proposing that a new organization of what you might call our colored programs at Portland State would be subjected to. The new organization would be a school that doesn't have a name yet, but that would include Black Studies, Women's Studies, Native American Studies, Chicano Latino Studies. Will all be thrown into this new organization. Okay? I'll read you just one example from the proposal of that new organization about who's going to be in charge and what they're going to be responsible for. The school, through its director, will therefore assume some of the functions and processes now performed by the individual departments. Okay? What we do will now be under the control and the direction of this new director of this new school. These may include centralizing budgets, coordinating courses and offerings, and coordinating hiring. That is, under their proposal, we won't choose who we get to hire. We won't control our budget. We won't control our classes and our curriculum. We don't think that's a good idea.
No.
Now, we're trying to do things to respond to that. We're trying to do things to make sure that that doesn't happen to your and our Black Studies department, but that's the battle that we're in. Now, I hope we win. If we win, 40 years from now, somebody else will be in this room celebrating. And if we lose, they won't. The Black Studies Department has always been a product of the kind of people who are in this room tonight. Been a product of students who want their university to respect and reflect their experience. It's a reflection of the community people who support us and insist that the university serve them as well. Okay. I'm glad to be here tonight. It's a pleasure to be associated with the people who founded the Black Studies Department and the people who came out tonight to support it. But I don't want to give you the misimpression that our job is done. Okay? We have challenges today. We have things we still need to pay attention to. We still need your help and support. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Bullshit going down.
Who is this?
Oh.
Really?
Happy brother.
There you go. That's it. That was, the only thing I could get you on.
That Ron has the voice, man. You can't miss that Ron. I'm from the Bay Area.
Where are you from?
Frankie Beverly Mays.
I don't know if I ever saw them.
I think they're based.
When I think of Bay Area musicians, I think of Sly and the Family Stone.
My dad grew up in Richmond.
I used to hear
What's
like, you know, like War, Sly and the Family Stone. He's really the most well-known that I can think of, but I'm sure there's others.
You grew up in Berkeley?
I grew up in Oakland, but I was very close to the border of Berkeley, and I spent a lot of time in Berkeley.
San Pablo Avenue goes there?
It goes from Oakland to Berkeley all the way to Richmond, to like the longest street in, right?
So this is kind of our final thing on the program. Like I promised earlier, I said I'm going to have all the student leaders introduce themselves. So we have a few who are not on the panel, so I'm going to start here, and then we're going to come back over here real quick. So we're going to start right here.
Hi, I'm Sheree Solomon, Vice President of Planning for NAACP and Secretary of Black Cultural Affairs at PSU.
Hi, I'm Ruth Moto. I am Vice President with Sheree of NAACP. What else? I am in my senior year at Portland State, studying Communication Studies and Black Studies.
Alright, so like I said, so we're going to start here with introductions first, and then what we're going to do is I have one question for the panelists, and then what we're going to do is have you ask them questions, because I think it's questions from you, it might be more valuable to them than from me probably. So we're going to start right here.
Hello everyone, my name is Erica Lee Johnson, and I am a senior studying biochemistry and psychology at Portland State University.
Hi, my name is Joe Mulumba, and I am a post-bac English major, planning to go to graduate school for Masters in English.
Hello, my name is Princess Sakai. I am a sophomore, and my major is International Development of Africa.
My name is Drexel Frazier. I'm a sophomore at Portland State, majoring in film, minoring in business and music.
Hello everyone, I hope the food was good. Thank you for coming. My name is Tiffany Bigham. I am the Vice President of the Black Cultural Affairs Board, and very happy to be so. I have a Bachelor of Science in Communication and back for more to study business. Don't know if I'm gonna finish, but you know, grad school might be the next move. So versus another degree.
One day at a time.
Thanks again for being here.
How you doing? I'm Rashad King, currently a junior, urban studies and planning at Portland State University. I deal with the Black Cultural Affairs designs, advertisement, pretty much any type of artwork. and I'm also secretary for Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Alpha Psi chapter here on campus.
So the one question I just want to get everybody's answer on this is, like from your perspective, what is the benefit of having a Black Studies department on campus?
I think one of the benefits of having a Black studies at any college is the fact that you get to know your real history. I'm from Africa, so there's no Black studies without an African history. And a lot of history from African and Black studies has been lost throughout the years, or it's just nobody's ever been told. So when you have professors with PhDs and masters who really took in the time and research to tell the young people what Black history is, and there is something prideful by being Black. I know sometimes it's not always the case when you hear all the stereotype of what Black is, but having a Black history, a curriculum in your school kind of shows what Black power is and what it means to be Black and the struggles that we face. And so a lot of people are just walking around here not understanding that a lot hasn't really changed and a lot of things have just been modernized, but we still face racism. We still face a lot of issues, inequality. And so when there's not a black program at our school, we're kind of lost because we don't know where to go. And so it just kind of builds momentum and power, and that being Black is beautiful. As Donny Hathaway said, young, Black, gifted, and cursed. So, yeah.
Black studies on campus. I feel that is very important because the white world we're in, the perspective that they're giving us is, of course, not a Black perspective. To study our own heritage, our own culture is very important because who else can teach us that but Black professors, African professors? Of course, we should learn everything. We should gain knowledge about everything, but knowledge itself is first and most important. And I feel without a Black Studies department here on campus, then it would be easier for the system to pick these brainwashed, all these different type of images on us if we have lack of our own knowledge. Also, I feel that as a Black male, it's very important for us to really study our own selves. At the same time, it's so much that we have lost in transition that we should know. They're trying to take away something that I feel they're trying to rid of our knowledge, but at the same time oppress us with their ideals and all their lifestyles, their habits. But I just wanted to really, I don't know, I really feel that it's crazy to me how the school system I already really think is really corrupt. At the same time, for them to really try to take away something that's due to us, that we have professors and a lot of educators that are really here wanting to help our people. How can someone who lacks knowledge of Black or African anything keep us in the dark any longer? So that's how I feel.
For me personally, it's very important to have Black studies on campus because when you're coming up younger and you're in kindergarten, learning about American history, as they call it, they just throw in a little snippet of, people that look like me, and you learn about those same folks year after year after year without really knowing the people that paved the way for them. There was someone before Martin Luther King Jr. There was someone, there's more than just Harriet Tubman. So for me, having a Black Studies on campus is that one place where I can come before I get the rest of my education to learn more about myself. Because it will be, to me, seemingly impossible to learn all these things, about business and about music and film if I don't know about myself. because I haven't been taught that. So for me, Black Studies is just a knowledge of self. And like he said, the system is already corrupt. So to take our last little bit of something that we have, especially being a member of the Black Cultural Affairs Board, we need that support from having, you know, a major on campus where we can go to for information on history and stuff like that. So it's vital, not just, you know, an extracurricular activity like they make it seem. It's a vital part of the university system.
First of all, I want to give thanks for the opportunity to be here. Just, it's been a long time. I've been here in Poland for 5 years. I'm from the Congo. And Princess is also from the Congo as well as Useni. Just in order to respond to that, since I've been here, I've been to the Black Studies meeting for, just a month, but I can give you an idea of what it means to be Black in Africa. You would have a kid growing up on Disney cartoons of white people and dreaming is a white person. Unless he looks at the mirror, you will now realize that he's Black. And that kid is me. You will have women, girls, mothers trying to bleach the skin to look white. And that's what pretty means. If you bleach your skin, then you're pretty. Another thing that the media does an amazing job is to portray African American as gangster, violent people, and people you should never trust. Let me tell you that Professor Kwame St. John was the first person who actually inspired me to return to poetry. Reading about his life, his achievement, his accomplishment, his work, helped me define me as a Black person who can actually write and think. And discovering there is a Black Studies, there are people who have been trying to research the history, to understand the history. In Africa, you never think about it because Black are Black. When you see a white person, that's when you get a surprise when you're shocked. And the reaction I get sometimes from white children when they see a white person who they start crying, that's the reaction I used to have when I saw a white person for the first time. So, Black experience for me has been all my life. This is for me a really, amazing moment because it's not about, it's not just about being African or just being African American or being from the Caribbean. So, just that Black experience is Black. It's beyond what I can describe. And listening to the experiences of our elders and thinking about the future, I made a commitment. I've been coming to meetings and I've realized the importance of just being involved. It's not about the money, it's not about the degree, it's nothing, because it's about who you are. So it's beyond what I can say. So.
Okay, so I believe that having a Black Studies department is revolution. And that's why they want to take it away. And that's why they want to try to change it and put it under the umbrella of something different. And realizing that, not only as a young person and looking out at the crowd today, it's time to stand up, time to say thank you for the knowledge, so let's go forth with that. I think the department is there for me, and I think it's there for all of us in this room and outside in the community and at the university today. I'm gonna keep it real. Like I've been at this university 5 years. I didn't step foot into Black Studies until about my 4th year into it. I was in athletics. That was never an important thing to athletic people. That's gotta change. It's got to change. It's got to be implemented in everybody, not just on campus, not just in Northeast, not just in Portland. It's time, and it's time everywhere. And you know, it's Black Studies, and it's there for me to meet professors, and it's there for me to meet people who are revolutionary minded and know about our history, know about things that have been stripped from us. Let's grow, and I think we can do that with our Black Studies department. I have faith, and I know we can.
So, can you guys hear me? So I'm going to tell you guys a quick little story, just really quick. I remember my freshman year, I didn't know what classes that I was going to take, and I remember I had just met an older lady, and I was kind of like, why does this woman keep talking to me? I was trying to like find my classes and everything, and it was Miss Cheryl, so Cheryl Mays. And so she said, well, why don't you take, the class was called the Psychology of the African American Child. And it was a senior level class, it was a 400 level class. And I was a freshman. And I was like, no, I can't take the class. And that was my first time ever meeting Dr. Miller Jones. And so I went into his office, and I was so nervous, I was so scared. And so he was like, stand right there for a minute. So he had me standing there like 10 minutes. And so I'm nervous, I'm like shaking and sweating. And so he said, if you can make it in the class the first day, then you can enroll in the class. And I remember sitting in that class, and it was like everything that I had been feeling and thinking, I was finally able to bring it to life. One thing about a lot of the professors in Black Studies, they allow us to take our thoughts, our words, and breathe life into them. And I think if they take away Black Studies, a lot of times, and it's not just for the Black students on campus, because one of the really awful things is most of the Black Studies classes on campus, Black students don't take. And so when we do have an opportunity to take those classes, you learn so much more about yourself, the richness of yourself. Your history comes along with it, but as a person you grow. And you're able to really cultivate everything that you are, everything that you have, everything that you've been taught. You learn the difference between what's real and what's false, what's for you and what's not. And I think it would be a really big disservice if anything happened to Black Studies. Because there's a lot of people coming in that are freshmen, that are sophomores, and if it was taken away next year or the year after, they wouldn't be able to be. I think I'm a heck of a leader, not just on campus, but in the community as a whole. And it's because of Black Studies that I'm that person. And I mean, just having, and I made sure that I brought this. Let's see if I can dig it out of my pocket. And I promise I'll be quick. But I remember going in Miss Abel's office about a year and a half ago. I think it's in my back pocket, and I got a lot of bags, so I don't want to get it. I went in Miss Abel's office. I was feeling really down because, and I promise I'll be quick. I was feeling really down because as a science and math major, out of 350 students, it's really difficult to be the only one that looks like you. And I was feeling really down and really low, so I went in her office, and she said, oh, I knew I brought this for a reason. And it's a really pretty smooth rock. And on the front of it, it says confidence. And so I take that with me everywhere I go. When I take an exam, if I go to an interview, if anything where I feel like I'm going to be anxious or nervous or I can't be myself, I just always have it in my pocket, and I rub it for it. It's my luck, my good luck charm. And just think if Black Studies wasn't there, I would never be able to have had those experiences. So I think that Black Studies is a jewel at Portland State University, because for university to proclaim that, let knowledge serve the city, and how they celebrate diversity, it's not happening. And so I think that we should hold the university accountable by coming together at events like this. And just, I want to thank all the professors and all the students that I know, because you guys have been a part of this journey that I'm on, and the journey is almost over just at Portland State. But the things that I've learned from these professors and the classes and everyone who's been just a part of my growing process, there are things that I'll take with me for the rest of my life. And I think, once again, without Black Studies, I would have never known those experiences. So thank you. All right.
All right, so if any of you guys have any questions for the panel, we have one question back here.
I don't have a question. I just want to add to that. As a student, older student, as Erica stated, you know, I'm in the science field too. Psychology, usually it's just me or one or two other people of color. But the thing too is that Black Study Department, especially that Oregon History of Blacks that Daryl Miller teaches, it should be mandatory for every student that steps on that campus. And one of the reasons I'm saying that, being a part of the movement, but also being able to, you know, share my stories and also learn a lot about what he teaches as well. I have not learned or heard so much ignorance in my life until I got to Portland State. And the thing is that it took me at least 2 years to adapt as an older student, because back during the day, some of those students wouldn't have survived, but I had to remember that they're younger than my kids. But it's not an easy situation in academia. And I try to share that with family members, friends. I tell people, follow your tax dollars. You can go up in there and see what's really happening. It's very hostile. But the thing is that we got a lot of work to do. I'm in my comfort zone now. You know, I take my aches and pains with me. And most of these students, I know a lot of the young students or what have you. And, you know, sitting and watching, and when they think, oh, I'm the only one with the problem, then I go to them. Because I know what I would do. But the thing is that I don't have the energy, but they're my new legs.
All right.
But the whole thing too, we have a lot of work that we have to do in bridging the community. I'm proud of the young people here because I watch how, you know, students that graduated. The thing is that a lot of the departments and committees and stuff was tore up. But these young students here, they're the only ones, you know, well actually the NAACP is the only chapter that exists at Portland State, as far as I know, within this city. It's because of these students. And the thing too is that we all have to do something. We all have to bring, you know, our expertise, work with them, make them understand. You have to conserve the energy, do it at your own pace, because like I said, I still have battle scars from being out there. But what I see inside academia, what they use our tax dollars for, when I got to Portland State in 2003, I needed a magnifying glass to find the Black Studies Department. That's just how small it is. But it's important that we all, you know, you can walk in there anytime, you know, and everybody, you know, need to at least go, even if it's no more than did you take away the couch? Because the thing is you can go sit in there or just interact with people. And it's true. Students of color, particularly the Black students, do not know about the Black Studies Department. So the thing is that each one teach one, word by mouth, the grapevine. You know, the thing is that we have to tell one another. Because the thing is that that department is very vital. Very vital. And it's very necessary. And my sister friend here, Sister Avell, I was so happy when she got there, because also too with her having a lot of history and being a Native, because most of the young people at Portland State don't even know who the Native Oregonians are. And a lot of them have been successful. So we also have a job, and when I'm saying we, I'm talking about the baby boomers and what have you. We have a job of linking and teaching and sharing our stories, because I've heard stories that don't even reflect Black people in here. And we do have a village. We're all a part of this here. So that's all I want to, reiterate, and we got a lot of work to do. But the thing is that it's all about each one teach one, and we're not going nowhere.
Thank you, Carol.
My question is to you guys, but also I think even to the faculty, because this leaves me with one thing to know. Well, one, there are friends in the Black Studies Department that are here tonight, but there are also people that are not here in this room. So my question is, what help do you need from the community, from individuals, from organizations, to let the university know that this is not acceptable, that we will not condone all these different programs to be under one roof, to be managed by one person that has too much power, because we have our own. So my question is, what can we do? What can I as an individual do, as well as what can I as an organization do?
I especially just want to speak to you as a math and science major. I think you're a very important person for the community, and it's important for you to remember that math and science is a part of your African heritage as well. And when you go into the math and science departments, you're seeing, like a minority, that there is a history behind it, and the foundation of mathematics is connected to things that will be done and preserved in Africa. So when you go into the math department and the science department, you should go in with very good at yourself, and that you have an obligation, and you're going to be a very important model for the Black community as well, because there is a need for more Black people to be involved in math and sciences. It's much more important than this. It's much more important than football. It's very important in terms of empowering in the long run, empowering the Black community and the national and the international level as well. So I'm very proud of the fact that you are a math and science major, and I'm hoping that down the line when you finish your education and you establish yourself, that you take yourself into the Black community as an example of that skill, because it's going to be very necessary.
I think we should try to answer your question. Get some answers from the students. Do you guys have a response to your question?
I think in terms of help from the community, we as the different clubs like the NAACP and the Black Cultural Affairs Board and the Association of African Students, we do events where we need support. We need people there. The other night, Black Cultural Affairs Board did Black Love Ready to Go at the seminar, an open discussion. We have events planned in the future, so to just show up and show support, because we do have to report back to the university and say this many people showed up, just to show that people are coming and that people are involved and people are excited about what Black student groups and what the Black Studies Department can do on campus. Because if we show them what we can do, there's no excuse for that. There's no excuse.
How do you advertise? Yeah. How do you get the word out to the people on your campus?
Pretty much it's students going out and promoting through flyers, handbills, word of mouth, Facebook, using all type of just media in general, print media, you know, social media, to really try to get it out there and to really answer your question further. It's just awareness. That's a very good question to ask, because how can people change something they don't know anything about?
Can I make a suggestion? I get telephone calls from Portland State as an alum. I get flyers from Urban Studies Department. I get flyers from Metro something or another. I mean, Portland State is recruiting me, trying to give money all the time. May I suggest that you get your past either class, a list of people who take your classes, but particularly those who've gotten some sort of certificate or majored in Black Studies, and get on the phone. I'm getting calls from 2 or 3 schools constantly, give money, give money. Black Studies can do the same thing, and you might even recruit some of your alum to make some of those calls. I really think you would get more support if you had greater visibility.
How much time do we have? When do these decisions become concrete?
I think that's a question for a faculty member. I'm not sure which one.
You shouldn't have got up. Don't worry, we're going to ask you for help, and we're going to ask you very specifically for a particular kind of help. All of us in the room have had to deal with these kind of problems, these kind of issues before. You know it's a long, drawn-out, negotiated process. Certain things have to happen at certain times in certain ways, and we intend to come to you and ask you very specifically for the things you can do to help us as we battle these issues.
You asked the wrong question. You want to know what the timeline is.
I was getting something to drink. What timeline are we discussing? The Dean's Office wanted the reorganization to be in place in the fall. And of course we have been resisting that. We've been offering an alternative vision of how any reorganization might look. And of course our objective is to make sure that we don't lose any of the power or the privileges we have over Black studies that exist now. But you're dealing in a situation where everything is open for negotiation. It's a political environment that we're dealing with, and it's pretty safe to say that the timeline that they envision is not going to unfold. The timeline that will actually unfold will be a process of interaction and negotiation. And there's a place for each and every one of you to play in that process, and we'll let you know when you can be of help to us.
I guess I'll just go. First of all, I want to say thank you guys for putting this on, and thank you for your leadership at the university, because I know each of you and you all do absolutely amazing work. My question and my challenge to you is, at a university where there are 27,000 students and less than 700 of them are African American, and at a time where the faculty needs leadership from the students more than ever, at least in the past couple years that I can remember at the university, which one of you is going to take the leadership skills that you have learned and run for student body president? Because I don't think there's been an African American student body president since Andrew Haynes. And as student body president, you have access to over $600,000 in that student incidental fee money that you can use however you want to use. So I know that I've spoken to some of you about it before, but I really do challenge you, because you really do have the skills, and it really is the time. And I really think that each one of you would do an amazing job. So That's my question and my challenge.
She doesn't want to say it, but she's been wanting to be president.
Put her out there.
That's a good question, because I've actually never thought of actually running for any student position. I think I'm vocal enough in my ways. I think, like Hannah mentioned earlier, I think all of us are highly capable of being in a student government position. As far as myself, I have a very unorthodox way of doing things. Like Malcolm said, by any means necessary. And honestly, I'm the type of person where I will knock at your door every single day until you know, oh snap, this person's knocking on my door. I think at a stage where we're at with just being a state of Black, it's time to really be aggressive. You know, not every single person is gonna have the same passion that I have. And I always say it always takes one. Because if you look back, it's always been that one individual, and everybody else started following. And it does get discouraged, you know, when you're around campus, you're having an event, you want young African Americans to come out. It seems like I have to have a party or go to the club for everybody else to come. And so I think where we're at now is time to really be aggressive and to let them know, like, this girl at 7 a.m. is going to be in my front office knocking, so let me do something about that. And so I think every single person has the potential to be a student government.
Like she said, I think either one, like she said, either one of us could take the reins, but I think the most important part is no matter who takes the reins, that we all support that person.
Right.
You may have one of us up there, but if the rest of us just forget about them, then they're just up there by themselves and it's the same thing. So I think no matter what happens, because we're in student groups, our offices are next to each other, we kick it together, we go to each other's events, but it's time for us to take over the university. They want to take over us, so why not take over the university?
Can I make a comment? I think the question is, who is willing to do it? I'm sure somebody else will.
So, for about a year and a half, I've been thinking about running for ASPSU president at Portland State University. But within this last year, and all the promotion that's happened, and how everything is just in a state of flux, and I feel that for a person to get into that position, you have to have a solid foundation and people backing you. You have to be, everything has to be done in such a way to where each governmental body is in alignment and everybody has an understanding of what our main goals are. I watched the whole process this year and it didn't happen. Hannah asked that question, and under Hannah's leadership, Hannah Fisher over there, the young lady with the hair that just asked the question, she was phenomenal because she didn't sit in meetings and talk about what she wanted to get done. She didn't fight with people and pout when things didn't get done. She went and she made it happen. And if she couldn't go that way, she went around and made it happen. I don't see that happening, and it's very discouraging because to be in that position as student body president, vice president, the student fee commission chair, it's a lot of pressure, not only from the student body who you're supposed to be representing, but also from the administration. And the administration in Portland State, I have to be honest, the administration in Portland State, they use a lot of the people that are student government like puppets.
Yes.
And they promise the students a lot of things that they don't deliver on. And they have us in this constant state of turmoil and chaos, but they keep going on with business as usual. And for me, I refuse to be like that. I refuse to let my last year at Portland State be like that. And the only way I would run is if I had a solid executive staff, SFC, and Senate to where we were all in alignment with each other. That's the only way I would see it happen, because I've seen this year, and true enough, there's people in the room from this year's student government, and if I hurt people's feelings, I'm sorry. But a lot of things that have happened and went on, they're disgusting and they're disgraceful. And the reason why I say that is because people have allowed the administration to play them like puppets. And they've allowed their anger, they've allowed a lot of things to get in the way of really being able to negotiate, because as a student leader, you have to have negotiation skills. That's a must. And then on the other side of that, a lot of us go into these positions and we're not properly trained at all on how to deal with it. The administration of Portland State is something else. Yes. When I tell each and every one of you that in this room, and I'm not telling you something that I've heard, I'm not telling you something that I think, I'm telling you something that I've seen, I'm telling you something that I know. So my recommendation is anybody who thinks about getting into it, research it thoroughly first. Tonight, Rudy Soto and Hannah, they were both here tonight. And so for me, I sat down and talked to each one of these guys. What was it like for you? What do you suggest? So anybody who wants to get into that position, research it thoroughly, know all the constitutions, know the bylaws, everything for everybody, so they cannot bamboozle you, because they will. Yes. And it's happening right now. They're trying to restructure Portland State like you would not believe, and the affairs of the students are lax. That's not even a concern. They think, I know for me, because I'm out of state, I pay so much money. I've gone through almost $200,000 in 4 years. And that's a house. But has my education been worth that $200,000? No. And where's my money at? Where do my student fees go? Another thing, and I'm sorry to keep going on so long, but it hasn't been talked about tonight because there's some students here in the room. Our student budgets, as our student groups, NAACP, AAS, BCAB, we do so much programming there at the university. We have youth programs. We have programs where we help feed the homeless. We have programming where we go out to different parts of the city and do different things. And we're always active. And I mean, our stipends, and maybe some people say, well, when the student groups first started, no one got paid. But this is 2010. Okay? And they cut our student stipends to less than half. And so that's like probably $25, $30 per person per month. Nobody can eat off of that. Our budget for our student groups, the only African American student groups in Portland State, there's only 3. But you have like 15 gaming. I mean, like Nintendo Wii, what's the other one? Sega Genesis? There's like 15 of them. There's no cultural. These 3 student groups do all of the diversity, training, cultural competency, everything that Portland State is supposed to do. We do, and we're students. And they cut us, they're not supporting us. So all that in a nutshell to say, student government is not the only place that you can be active. You can be active in your classes. When you're in these classes, don't just sit back and let the professors say whatever they want to say. Oh, all black people are sick and obese and they got diabetes and they're drug addicts. Don't sit in the classes and let them say things like that. Be active in everything you do, and it doesn't just have to be about student government.
One question right there. I think we're gonna have we have time for 2 more questions, so one here and one more.
I have a question I'd like to ask everybody when she's done, if that's all right. So you all heard a story of student activism.